IVM.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We are very excited as we have with us a special guest, Adam Hollioake. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for taking time out, Adam. We're very excited to have you on the show. I have to say, three of us that run this podcast, we're all doing research about you, and we're all 90s kids, right? We started watching cricket in the 90s, and that's when you were kind of, that was your big cricketing time. So before we start, I have to ask everyone, tell us how cricket became the professional sport for you. As we read, you played rugby, you played Australian football. How did cricket become the professional choice?
It was my only option, really, because rugby at the time wasn't professional. I turned professional in 1989, but at that stage, rugby wasn't professional. It was an amateur sport. I think I only turned professional in 1993 or something like that. So I didn't really have an option to do anything else. I didn't have an option to play Australian rules football because I was living in England. They don't play it over there anymore. So, and also I had done a lot of boxing as well at that stage, but my parents didn't want me doing that. So, cricket was the sport that I got. I mean, that was the only offer I had, really. I'm making out like I had a choice. It was like, that was the only offer which I got because the other sports weren't professional.
Awesome. And tell us, I'm curious because I live in Singapore. And, of course, you've got a lot of South Asians who live here, a lot of expats as well. And cricket is big in terms of viewing, but in terms of playing, it's still not big. And I know your family moved to Hong Kong when you all were young. And I read that you joined a cricket club called Junior Gappers, if I'm getting the name right.
That's right. Yeah.
A lot of our listeners live in the South Asian region and the Asian region. How was it growing up in a Hong Kong type of environment where cricket is not the national sport? Cricket is not the main sport. Even in Singapore, sometimes I struggle to explain to people what sport I actually follow. How was it being there? Did you guys stand out? Was it a big South Asian community? Can you talk us through a little bit about your Hong Kong experience?
Yeah, sure. So basically, my father was working in Hong Kong. He got posted there. He's an engineer. So me and my brother, my dad, the only sort of social thing that he could do was he would work all day, and then on the weekends he'd go up to the Hong Kong Cricket Club, and he would play cricket all day. But we would sit around and we'd be bored. So there was some nets there. So we used to just go over, me and my brother and some other friends of the kids of the fathers that were playing cricket, and we'd go and we'd play all day in the nets. That was our only option, really, other than sit there and watch. And no kid wants to watch their dad play. So that's how we learned. We just learned by playing in those nets. We learned ourselves. We learned by watching our dad. Occasionally, when he wasn't playing, he'd go and give us some coaching. And it was actually my dad who set up that junior gappers thing to try and help the kids around. So, my dad was a very good cricketer. He played for the Victorian Country 11. So he's because he grew up in a place called Ballarat, which isn't. I mean, it's the country, so out in the countryside. So he played for them, and so he gave us a good basics and understanding of the game at a young age, and the rest of it was just like every kid. Probably you got billions of them in India who just go out there and are passionate and play every day. So we were no different to that. We would just go there and play every day, and that was sort of the beginning of our falling in love with cricket. It wasn't formal. It was just us just being kids and just playing in the nets and loving the game.
Awesome. That's a very familiar story to a lot of us in India.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so was your dad your coach, the official coach of the Junior Gappers?
He had a few coaches, because when I first started there was, like 7 or 8 people, and then the next week there was 50, and then the next week there was 100. So he had to get other parents to help coach as well. So it grew really fast. And I've always had a good relationship with Hong Kong. I went back and coached Hong Kong in 2000.
Nice.
So I was still playing for England at the time, but during my off season I went and coached the Hong Kong team. So we played against Singapore in the Asia Cup. So it was I'm familiar with Singapore. I travelled there a lot. I'm very, very good friends with Jason Della Pena, who's one of the broadcasters for ESPN there in Singapore. He's based in Singapore, and I believe he's doing some coaching up there now as well. So we played together at Surrey. So I'm really familiar with the Southeast Asian cricket, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand. I'm aware of how these places work.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's good. And we hope to see some Southeast Asian get into one of these big tournaments soon, right? It'll be great.
That'd be great. That'll be the best, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great for the region. And I have to ask you a question. Was the Hong Kong Sixers around when you were playing?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I played in the Hong Kong Sixers. I think I played 4 times.
Oh, cool.
So, I think we came runner-up every single time. So I never won it, but we got runners-up every time. So I was actually talking about that just the other day with Andy Bickle, who I coach at Queensland with, and we were reminiscing about the Hong Kong Sixers. They were good fun tournaments. Very good fun. Absolutely.
And so, Adam, moving on then, tell us a little bit about your experience with Surrey. I mean, we've read a lot. You were definitely one of the most successful captains. And as I was telling a few of my friends that, I'm going to speak to Adam, they all got excited, as all Indians do, right? We know every cricketer, we follow your journey. And a lot of them ask me, so I guess 2 questions I wanted to ask you. Tell us a little bit about your experience with Surrey. And secondly, as I talked to some of my friends, they said Surrey was a team at that point which was ahead of its time. And it was kind of the team that was playing T20 cricket before T20 cricket came out. So can you talk us through a little bit about your experience and about the type of cricket Surrey played? What was it like for you?
Yeah, so when I started with Surrey in 1989, I was only young. I was 16 at the time or something like that. So I was fortunate. I came into a good side, very talented side, but we hadn't won the championship since 1971. So that was the year I was born.
Yeah.
So we'd had a long history of failing, not achieving our potential. And we were really going through a bad time in 94, 95. I think at the time in 1995, when they came and asked me to be captain, we were the bottom of the championship. It was the middle of the season. We were going horribly. And I'd never been the captain of any team before. So we had huge potential, but we had a lot of fight.
Not even the Hong Kong Sixers?
No. So that was, of course, England when you go there. But with Surrey, we'd had no success. So we were playing terribly. We were arguing amongst ourselves. We weren't a good team. We had good individual talent, but we weren't a good team. So we had no discipline or anything like that. So, and when they came and asked me to be captain, I thought there must have been somebody standing behind me because I've never been asked to be captain of anything. I thought, even me. So, I just said, okay. And I think the best thing that happened in that situation was because I knew I wasn't ready to be the captain at the young age. I went there and I spoke to the team. I said, look, I need you all to help me. I'm the youngest guy in the team. You guys got to help me with this captaincy. And then it became a team effort. And I then grew into the job. After a few years, I became more experienced at captaining. And then as the years went on, then I didn't need as much help. But, you always need the help of your players. You can't, Of course I needed help. But I didn't. In those early days, I needed a lot of tactical advice and how to handle things from people like Alex Stewart, Graham Thorpe, all those things. And then eventually, over a period of time, I sort of developed into my own captain. But we were fortunate. We had we had the talent. Everyone said, a lot of people asked me what was the best thing about my captaincy. I say my team, my player had the best players, which is a good start. I mean, if you've got good players, then you've got a chance. There's no one that's ever taken the worst players and turned them into the best team. So you need the players to start with. And I'm always humble and respectful that I had very good players. So, but by the same token, there's been a lot of teams that have got very good players who haven't had success.
Yep.
So they need to be brought together. So, and we were able to do that, and we won 9 trophies in 7 years from there. So it was a really exciting time to be involved in, and we just kept improving. And then it got to the point where we weren't just happy with winning; we wanted to be inventive and try and move the game forward. And I think we did that in 2002. 2002, we won the inaugural T20 competition. That was the first time T20 had ever been played.
Yep.
Won that. So, and we started, we were very sort of ahead of our time, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the quote that everyone talks about the team in probably late 90s, early 2000s, that you guys were ahead of your time. And I'm going to jump a little bit. I had this question for later, but do you feel like if you had played 10 years later, T20 cricket was just built for you? And Adam, I'm sure you get that question a lot of times, but yeah.
Well, it is. If you look at my record in T20, it's the shorter the game, the better it suited me. So if they had 1 over cricket, that would suit me even better. It's like I just struggled. The longer the game, because I'm a physical player. I'm a strong athlete, but maybe my concentration isn't so good. So the long game, Test cricket, then your concentration becomes more important than your skill. Whereas in the short form of the game, I feel like the physical players can have more of an impact. So I think T20 definitely suited me. But I'm also that question. Do you regret that you're not playing now? Well, you're always going to say that, because if I looked at the players that played 20 years before me, they weren't even getting paid to play at all.
Yeah.
Well, they were paying for $50 for a game. So of course, and these players these days, in another 20 years' time, they're going to be getting paid more again. So it's always going to be going up. But I don't regret it, because I was fortunate, and then I went through a period of time where we started to get paid quite good money, but we didn't have all the attention that the current players have to deal with.
Yeah.
I would have got myself in a lot of trouble with social media, and like I was a bad boy with the girls, so I would have got myself in a lot of trouble. So I'm grateful for the time I played in.
Yeah, social media has changed everything now. Like, you're up to date with everything.
Yeah, it's wonderful for those guys, but they've got to behave themselves now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Adam. So let's talk a little bit. You spoke about your Surrey experience. Let's talk a little bit about your debut for England. I believe it was in '96, and then you were captain in '97. How was that moving the journey so fast, right? I mean, it was great that you had some captaincy experience, but it's rare that you hear of somebody coming in within 1 year and becoming captain in the international game.
Well, that you're correct, really correct there. But what even more correct is the little amount of games we played back in then. So between 1996 and 1997, when I became captain, I only played 5 one-day internationals.
Wow.
So it's not like now, in 1 year, you might play 30, 40, 50 one-day internationals. But I still only played 5 one-day internationals when I became the captain of England. So that was really fast. I think that happened just... It was a timing, like the perfect storm. So Michael Atherton was sort of not really wanting to play one-day cricket anymore. I'd been the captain of Surrey successfully. We were seen to be an inventive side. I got asked to be the captain of the England A. We went out to Australia and we were successful. And then we played the Champions Trophy in Sharjah, and I went out there. Michael Atherton was having the series off, so they said, let's send a young team out and send Adam Hollioake as captain. So I went there as captain after 5 games. I mean, ideally I would have had more time to get used to international cricket before I became captain. But when someone offers you the captaincy of your country, England, Australia, India, you just say yes. You don't say no. They don't say, I'm not quite ready yet. You just do it.
Yeah, you have to jump into it and learn on the job, right?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to. So, and you're blessed. It's a fortunate position. I could have been terrible at the job, but still, I would have accepted it. So.
Okay. That's awesome. And was it a very big shift to international cricket, like from a captaincy of Surrey to captaining England?
There's different things. There's things that were harder about the job, and there's things that are easier. Obviously, the easier things are you're only with the players for less time. You spend most of your times with your county side, so you don't have to worry about, the off-the-field stuff as much. But with international cricket, you come together and you concentrate. You've got the best support staff around. So, but you've got to deal with the media, and you've got other extra pressures which come with captaining.
Yeah,
with captaining in England, but captaining Surrey has different pressures, but both different. It just depends on different personalities, suit different things. I never found talking to the media very hard.
Okay.
It didn't bother me, so it didn't distract me very much. Just the step up in standard for international cricket is a big step up. Yeah. So that was the biggest challenge for me.
Got it. Awesome. And Adam, talk to us, our listeners, a little bit about your view on split captaincy. It's probably one of the most debatable topics in cricket.
Yeah.
In India also, we've had split captains. It works sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes. But what's your personal take on split captaincy?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been getting asked this question for, it's like almost coming up for 30 years now.
Yep.
And I don't know what I think it depends on the people, and it's not just the captains. It's also, you got to take into consideration the management, and you got to take into consideration the players. So, and it has to be a lot of communication there. I think it can work. But ideally, if you've got a captain who's capable of doing all of those jobs, that's the best case scenario, I believe. But if it's not that case, like in our instance, Michael Atherton was the best test captain, but wasn't necessarily in our one-day team.
Yep.
That situation changes. And there's been many cases of that throughout the world,
yep,
throughout the last 30 years. I think I was the first split captain, I think, from memory. I might be wrong, but if I wasn't, there was one of the few ones who did that. So it's an interesting time. Like, it changes all the time. Obviously now you potentially 3 captains, T20, one day, test match. So I don't know, where does it end? I think it all depends. It all depends on the people that you've got involved. I mean, it can work,
yeah,
but it can also be a disaster if it's not right. So.
And I had one question on that, right? You're seeing nowadays teams also becoming different. Like when India goes to play tests, you have a completely different set of people, going up there, right from a Chiteshwar Pujara to Ishant Sharma, Ravichandran Ashwin. And then when you play ODIs, it's different. Do you think the set of players that make up the two teams play a part in a split captaincy being successful or not?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have the players, you got to have the team, you got to have... I think there's a core group, which I think is the best case scenario is you have like 4, 5, 6 guys who can play in all the formats. And then if you have just a few that just change over, I think that scenario works well. I don't know how successful it would be if you had totally different players coming in. That might be, and it could still work, but I think there's some players that are just, world class in all formats, like Kohli, all formats of... They could play 5-over cricket or timeless test match, and that guy is a very brilliant bowler. Bumrah, these guys, they're just good cricketers. It doesn't matter what format you want to play; they're just good.
Yeah.
But then there's other guys who special. And I wasn't one of those people. I just wasn't just good. I was better one-day cricket, T20 cricket. And yeah, I could play test match cricket in the right situation, but I wasn't one of those great players who could just do every... You're going to need to be the physical side of the T20 all the way through to the mental application side of things for a test match. It's a rare cricketer that is able to perform at that very highest level in all formats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you're right. In India, when you think about that, it's probably Kohli and Bumrah who are performing at all 3 levels at that.
And they're just good cricketers. They're just good. And when you're that good, then it doesn't matter what format it is. They could play 1-over cricket. Those guys would still be good.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Adam, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about your Sharjah experience and playing India and Pakistan. And Sharjah for Indian fans is, of course, you got a lot of memories, right? In the 90s, we played there a lot. How was it going out there? How was it facing that Indian team? We remember it for Sachin Tendulkar batting at number 4, which none of us liked at that point. Yeah. So how was facing India? How was coming out and winning that tournament? I think England's first big ODI tournament in over 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. That really was amazing for the country.
It was incredible because we went there and not only that, what people don't realise is we didn't send a very strong side because a lot of our best players were resting. Darren Gough, Caddick, Atherton, a lot of the guys rested and didn't come out there. So we weren't expecting to do very well. And especially in those conditions where the Indians and Pakistan sides are so dominant. In those days, you guys were playing regularly and it was new conditions for us. But the selectors were good. They picked an English side that they thought might be able to adapt to those conditions. And I think the thing which helped was that none of the Indian players had seen our players. There was like people like Matthew Fleming, Dougie Brown, Robert Croft, Mark Elam, people like this. They hadn't been around for myself. we hadn't been around, so they hadn't had a chance to.
Only 5 ODIs to see.
Yeah. So we were new. We were all single figures. We played like 5, 6, maybe maximum 8 or 9 one-day internationals. So we were new to these guys. Whereas Tendulkar and Ganguly and Azharuddin and these guys, we've been watching these guys for 10 years, watching them, seeing this. So it was a big advantage for us. I'm not going to lose sight of that. But for us to come out in those conditions and they were, what people also must remember, they were one-off game. So it wasn't like we were playing India 3 times or Pakistan 3 times. We played them once. So they hadn't seen us. So we played them once. It was like, bang, hit them, new technique, tactic, played. We didn't play them again. So it was a big advantage for us. If we'd been playing India 3 times in a row or Pakistan 3 times in a row, the first time we might be able to surprise them. But then these guys are clever cricketers. They would adjust and they would learn about that. But the tournament, the way it was structured, set up, suited us very well. Awesome.
And who was your favourite Indian cricketer at that point, if I can ask?
Oh, Tendulkar. Tendulkar was definitely my favourite. He was an amazing player. I remember we played them in that opening game of that tournament, and I'd never played against Tendulkar before. He was captain, I was captain, and we went out there. And my first thing was I couldn't believe how short he was. I was like, wow, how's he hit the ball so hard if he's that small? But then we got India in a bit of trouble. Might have been 4 for. We got 250, which back in those days was a good score.
Yep.
We had India 4 for 40 or 4 for 50, something like that. And Tendulkar was in, and then he was just batting single. And then I think there was a drinks break after 25 overs or something like that. And Alex Stewart came to me and he said, "We need to put the field back. Tendulkar's he's gonna start trying to hit the ball now." I said, No. Let's leave the field up. I said, let him try and do it. If he does it, he'll get out. And Alex had played 150 one-day internationals. Said, "Smokey, we need to put the field back. This guy is going to start trying to hit us." I said, let him try. If he's that good, then he can hit for 6. I said, if he's not good enough, he'll get out. Let him try. I don't care. First ball after the drinks break, 6. Second ball after the drinks break, 6. I said, okay, let's put the field back. Awesome. So he was obviously, he'd seen a lot more of Tendulkar, but at that time I was like, wow, this guy is amazing. I didn't think a guy that small could hit the ball so hard and be so good. He was the best player I played against.
Awesome. And he loved Sharjah. And Adam, you've just given us a great soundbite to introduce this interview with you on social media.
Yeah, no problem.
Talk us through a little bit about 2 years later, how was it to experience a World Cup at home? I mean, that's probably a dream for a lot of players, right? To play a World Cup and to play at home. It didn't go as well, but what was the experience of 2 questions, right? One was, what was the experience of playing in the 99 World Cup? And second is, how was that game against India? I mean, all of us remember waking up and coming back on the second day, and it was new, right? It was a new thing, new experience for a lot of us. We didn't know what was going to happen. Just talk about the 99 World Cup a little bit.
Yeah, it was a funny one because we used the white Duke ball, which is the main thing, which I think, people, I mean, if you watch it on TV, you probably not pick up on that. It just looks like a white ball going down. But that white ball was it moved around a lot and it was really difficult. It would have been hard for Indians. And it was amazing that Pakistan got to the final of that World Cup, was because the conditions would have been really alien for, foreign to the subcontinent players, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India. But India had a really good side at that time, and they were just able to, like great players, Ganguly, Tendulkar, Kumble, great players who, might even be in, when you start talking about the greatest teams ever, these guys, you talk about these guys. So they were able to adapt to those conditions, and we weren't a great side. We were a good side, but we didn't have great players at that stage. Young Flintoff, we didn't have a side that was filled with good players, great players. Indian side was better than us then, and they knocked us out of the tournament. So I remember actually we were playing that the final game was in Birmingham. And we knew it was a Ganguly and Tendulkar opening the batting, and we started the game. Home game. This is our World Cup. This is in England, and we come to Birmingham, and Tendulkar and Ganguly came out to bat, I said, are we playing in Birmingham or are we playing in Bombay? It was like the crowd was like the whole. It was like it was like an away game for us because all the Indians had come there to Birmingham, and it did feel like an away game to us. So amazing, really. Just that shows the passion of the Indian supporters wherever they are in the world.
Yeah, actually, the three of us who run this podcast are guilty of that. In 2017 Champions Trophy and 2019, we were in Birmingham. We flew down from US, from Singapore, and of course the third guy, DJ, lives in London. But we were all dressed in blue, Indian flags, everything. And you're right, when you play in England against India in these big tournaments, it doesn't feel like you're watching the game outside.
Were you one of those guys in the crowd in 1999?
I wasn't there in 1999. I wish I had been, but I wasn't there.
It's your fault we got knocked out.
We were watching at home. But fast forward 20 years later, England won the World Cup at home. Yeah. Just what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it was great. To be honest, from our perspective, they were the favourites. They really worked at building a team. But just give us your thoughts a little bit about how you think England transformed right into this one-day team that everyone knew was going to win the World Cup.
I think basically it was built around personnel. England over the last, ever since I've known, have never had numbers 1, 2. Well, since the fielding restriction came in, I think it was the 95 World Cup where Sri Lanka won it with Jasprit and Kalawitharana taking advantage of the first 15 overs. That changed the way people played and approached one-day international cricket. And England have never had any players that have been able to do that. They've tried so many players. But this World Cup, we had Jason Roy and other guys who could come out and take advantage. Johnny Bairstow. Yep. Alex Hales, I know he didn't play in the World Cup, but he was there leading up to it and was part of that resurgence. We had so many guys who could then do that. And that's one area where England had struggled for as long as I've been playing, so for 30 years. And then off the back of that, we had good bowling attack. Jofra Archer coming in just before that World Cup, just to add that extra pace. So every area was covered: spin, leg spin, off spin, pace. You could bowl tight. And then I think the main thing out of all of those things, which they achieved between the 2015 World Cup and the 2019 World Cup, was the ability to manipulate spin bowling. Because that was the one area where we hadn't been very good. And if you look at the stats, they're quite interesting. They went from being the 7th or 8th best players of spin in the middle overs to the best players of spin. And I put that down to Graham Thorpe, who was the batting coach, and he worked a lot of hitting against the spin, a lot of training hitting against the spin, which is, anyone who plays a lot of cricket will know that the spin bowlers stack the field and batsmen hit with the spin. Yep. So the English batsmen practice hitting against the spin because there's less fielders, riskier, but less fielders on that side, and that increased the scoring rate. And I believe that was the difference between us winning the World Cup and not.
Awesome. And actually, you think about the team, you mentioned a few players, but just look at the balance that team had, right? You've got a Joe Root at number 3. You've got the middle order, which has Morgan and Ben Stokes. You've got Butler, who comes down there. I mean, you spoke about the first 15 overs being crucial and getting the start, but the way cricket has evolved, it's the last 15 overs where England is like, so long as we've got wickets in hand, we're going to score a lot of runs. I mean, if it just didn't stop. If you got one guy out, the next guy would come in, and then you're at a point where you've got 4 wickets and you've got Butler and Stokes at the crease, and it's just ridiculous. And
they're still attacking. It's very un-English, isn't it? So they're very un-English to just their attack, and to keep going for their shots and to keep backing themselves. It's almost the most un-English tactics that we've ever seen, but it was successful. They ended up winning the World Cup because of it.
Yeah, and they were dominant through large parts. There were scares in the middle, and then I guess that super over finish was just something
amazing. I don't think we'll ever see a World Cup final like that ever again.
Never again. Adam,
we might not ever see another game like that again, let alone in the final.
Yeah. It was incredible. I mean, what a way to wrap up a great tournament, right?
Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
So, Adam, let me come last couple of questions from our side. We don't want to keep you too long, but wanted to get your thoughts on some of the current Indian cricketers, right? And you can give me a word, you can give me a sentence, but I'll just shoot out some names and just let us know your thoughts, right? Virat Kohli.
The greatest.
Rohit
He's the
Sharma?
best. I mean, yeah, like this, one of the greatest. He's it's amazing the talent that India's got at the moment. And I think if I just talk in general about the team first, they've got talent in all areas, and they've got a strong leader. You know, a guy who's not your typical Indian. A lot of Indians over the years have been very just nice guys and just happy to sit back and take what comes their way. This guy's going out there and he's taking the attack to the rest of the world. He's aggressive. I think the rest of the world doesn't like it, but I do. I think it's fantastic because he's saying, he's almost, when he goes out there, you can see his attitude is that I'm going to fight for India and I'm going to come out here and we're not going to be subservient anymore. We're going to come out and we're going to attack you. And if you're not ready to play, we're going to beat you.
Yeah.
So I love it because that's the way I used to play my cricket. And for a long time, I watched Indian play and they're just nice guys.
Yeah. They're polite guys, especially in the 90s.
Very nice guys, like nice guys. We beat them and they were just nice guys. It was like, but nice guys come last.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think this guy's the best I've ever seen. Virat Kohli. I think he's the best. I mean, I never thought I'd see someone better than Tendulkar.
Yeah.
But it's taken me a long time because I'm so scarred by Tendulkar. It's taken me a long time to actually say, I think this guy's actually going to be better. If he can last as long, I mean, not as long. I don't think anyone's going to last as long as Tendulkar, but if he can get somewhere near there, then I think his mastery of the game, his professionalism, the intensity with which he plays the game, his mastery of his art is unprecedented. And people talk about Steve Smith and they talk about Joe Root and they talk about Kane Williamson. This guy's the best.
Awesome.
I don't care what the rankings say. This guy's the best.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Adam, you mentioned about that. In Indian cricket, the way few of us see it is you had three captains, right? Ganguly showed you or showed you that winning was a possibility. Dhoni showed you how to do that, like how to win. And I think Kohli has just showed you that there's no other way, right? So if you're losing, feel bad about it. And that's kind of been the story of Indian cricket through these three captains.
Yeah, that's good assessment, yeah.
And let me ask you just a few other guys, like Rohit Sharma, right? And a lot of people say he would be one of the best of any team at any time if it wasn't for Kohli.
Yeah. Well, he's the Stuart McGill of he's the Stuart McGill. Stuart McGill was probably the best leg spinner in the world, apart from Shane Warne was playing.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for Shane Warne, I don't know how many wickets Stuart McGill would have got, but it would have been a lot. So he's in that category. I mean, hopefully he won't go through his whole career in the shadows, but these guys end up getting there. I mean, he's still a tremendous player, but Kohli's everything, isn't he? He's got everything. He's the best. So unfortunately, it's like some people just live in the. Imagine if you were born in the 1990s, the 80s and 90s, and you were an all-rounder, and in Australia, it's like you got Mark and Steve Waugh playing. It's like you're not going to get a game. Yeah. So they don't have three all-rounders in the team. So those guys just dominated. You don't get a chance. And the only fortunate thing for Sharma is that they play six batsmen in the team. So he's thankful he's not a spinner because he wouldn't be playing because Kohli would be playing. But he's a brilliant batsman. I mean, world class.
Awesome. And given you were an all-rounder as well, we have to ask what's your view on Hardik Pandya? Yeah,
I mean, this new breed of Indian cricketers, they're coming in. I like the thing that they've struggled with over the years has been a little bit. Other Kapil Dev, you had one of the greatest all rounders, but there hasn't been a good all rounder for a long while for India. I think so. I think this guy's the real deal, and I think India is going to come. I feel I've got this feeling. This cricket goes in cycles, and I've got this feeling that India is about to come into their greatest era that they've ever had. I think they'll be the number one side for a while. It'll be between India and Australia. I feel are going to have in Test cricket. Are going to have a great tussle over the next decade to see who can be the greatest side, because Australia's coming and they've got the fast bowling. It might be a case of India beat Australia in India and then come over here. They might find it hard because Australian fast bowling is very good.
Yeah.
Amazing cricket at the moment is in an incredible place with the sides around the world. Sometimes you only have, like throughout the 70s and 80s, we had West Indies were a good side and everyone else was behind.
Yeah.
And then through the 90s, there was Australia and everyone else was behind.
Yeah.
Whereas now we've got at this time where there's five teams who can beat each other. So it's a great time to be a supporter.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. We have to ask you one last question around your coaching. And we know you're getting into coaching. Share with us a little bit about which teams you're coaching. I know you're working with Afghanistan and a T20 team there called Boost Defenders. What is the coaching experience been like for you?
It's been fantastic, actually. I started off coaching with England, and I worked with England in the T20. Went the England versus South Africa series in, I think it was like 2017 or 18, and then I went with the England Lions, and I worked with England Lions for a while. But then I've got my family and my kids they live out here in Australia, so I needed to be back closer to home.
Yep.
So I now coach Queensland. I'm the assistant coach. I'm the batting specialist for the Queensland team. So the players that I've been coaching that you guys in India might know of recent times is Manas Labuschagne,
yep,
and Joe Burns. And then we've got some other players coming up like Michael Nessa, Jack Wildermuth, Jimmy Pearson. So these guys are all going to become very good players, and their games are improving rapidly. So I think Manas is number 2 or 3 player in the world at the moment. So he's
doing the last 1 year he's had, right? Like
incredible year. So and I've been working with him in the last 3 or 4 months, and he's got better again. Awesome. So it's going to be interesting. He's like, I've seen him improving, not because of me. He's the hardest worker I've ever seen any cricketer. He's got better again. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. The hard thing for him is that I haven't seen him facing a lot of spin. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes when he comes to India. But if the Indians think they're going to get him out bowling swing or seam, that's going to be hard because he's very good now. Awesome. I think he's maybe the best player of swing and seam bowling in the world, I believe.
Wow. So that's going to be a great battle in December, right? Jasprit Bumrah bowling to Manas. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be a very, very good challenge. My suggestion for India is to get some spinners on at him.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. We're going to have to figure out a way to get you to come to coach the IPL teams. I think they'll benefit tremendously from your experience, from your mindset, from the way you approach the game, especially Delhi Daredevils or Delhi Capitals. We're big fans of that team. But just want to say thank you so much for taking time out to be on the podcast, and we're sure our listeners will love hearing you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adam.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. We appreciate their support. It's been a really fun week, guys. We've had some great episodes on your old favorites. Cyrus Says, Advertising is Dead, Edges and Sledges, Football Shitball had a really fun episode as well. Definitely do check it out. I'm sure you're going to enjoy yourselves. And thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next week.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about 3 friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my 2 sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Shortball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.